Welcome to the Performance Enhancing Podcast. It's like steroids for your brain. A podcast for people that want the best info, but just don't have the time. Get your podcast fix with the Cliff Notes versions of your favorite podcasts. No fluff, just the actionable golden nuggets. Having this much knowledge at your fingertips should be downright illegal. So get ready for another dose of Performance Enhancing Podcast with Satori Prime. Here's your host, Ilan Ferdman.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Performance Enhancing Podcast with your host, Ilan Ferdman. Stop whatever you're doing. If you haven't listened to part one of my pep talk with Ryan Moran, you are doing yourself a disservice. Go back and listen to that one first. This is a kid prodigy, just an amazing, amazing brain. He's 26 years old, but he literally talks like he's 60. And we covered some amazing, amazing things in part one that if you miss, you're going to really beat yourself up. I mean, we looked at lessons you learned from losing $100,000, sabotaging yourself in business, massive tips on how to share yourself and share yourself with others, even when you have no results or anything to show for it. Power of consistency, amazing stuff. Anyway, in part two, we're going to go over how Ryan is an investment geek. And we're going to look at some massive investment tips that he will share with us. Also, how he got over the fear of being afraid of investing. And some other things we cover is how to create really, really massive accountability in your life so you actually produce incredible results. Talked a little bit about letting fear be your guide, which is one of my favorite conversations. And we end with how to stop comparing yourself to others and actually live a life that you love. So with that, let's dive right into part two. And if you haven't listened to part one, please, please, please make sure you go and do that now. Enjoy. All right, let's pivot here. You're an investing geek, which was 26 years old and an investing geek. How did that come about?
You know, it's funny. You asked me about the operating in the red or withstanding no result for a while. And you said there's some switch in your brain that happens. And I had the same thing with investing. And investing is my favorite thing to talk about right now because I've always been interested in investing. I've always had a desire to invest, but my thinking was always in a short-term window. So the confidence to invest wasn't there. But once your brain switches into thinking about long-term results rather than what's going to happen next week, all of a sudden investing becomes really easy. I mean, my investing strategy I can give to you in 1 minute. I make my money on the internet through my businesses. Important thing is that your time is not connected to it. That's the first. I call it my wealth triad, my three spots. First spot, a business that is not tied to your time. Number two, put it into a high yield asset-backed commodity. For me, that's real estate.
Okay.
If you didn't want to invest in real estate, you could do real estate investment trusts, which are publicly traded real estate investment companies.
Okay.
And then I take that money and I put it into long-term dividend-paying stock with companies that have increased their dividends every year for at least 10 years. And that is my strategy. The thought being, I don't have to make a bunch of money by flipping a house in real estate. I'm in that for 10 years from now, it being worth twice its value and me collecting this rent check for 10 years, combined with putting that money into dividends, which the dividends look fairly low, 4 or 5% right now. But since they've increased their dividend for 10 years, now the ROI on that investment is astronomically high, like stupid high. Like, how can you possibly get that in the market high? Because it continues to build on each other. So something magical happens when you get the idea of thinking long-term versus going after a short-term effect. And that definitely impacted my investing view as well, which freed me up in order to pursue new areas of passive income.
Brilliant. Now, you were always interested in it, but obviously now you're really in it. Where are you learning? Where are you getting your tips? How are you educating yourself in this world?
You know, when I was 14, 15 years old, rather than going to high school parties, I was reading real estate books on my couch.
You seriously are a geek.
I really am an investing geek. But here's the thing, just like internet marketing, just like paid traffic, everyone has an idea of what's best.
Yes.
There's 1,000 different theories. So I finally boiled it down to what makes sense for me. Not what makes sense to this guy, not what makes sense to even Warren Buffett, but what makes sense to me. And there were a few simple things that I followed and a few rules that I decided to follow. One, I wanted my capital to be protected. So I'm not investing in anything where I can't get my capital, what I originally invested back quickly. So a house, I can sell the house and get my capital back. Stocks, I can sell and get my stock back. But the most important rule for me was that I was going to be investing for cash flow, not for appreciation of value. But if appreciation of value happens, I'll take that as a bonus. For example, I just had someone on my podcast where we're talking about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And he's talking about why Bitcoin he thinks is a great investment. It violates my own rules for investing because it doesn't give me any cash flow. It's a pure speculation play. It might go up, it might go down, and I can't control that. Whereas cash flow, I'm going to hold on to that forever anyway. So if it goes up in value, great. If it goes down in value, I just buy more because I'll get more cash flow.
Yeah.
So that's my rule, and everybody is going to have different rules. It's just like we talked about being true to yourself and following that, and other things follow. So for me, I created some rules about investing that made me feel like I was free to pursue them. And I don't violate those rules. And as long as I operate in them, investing is really easy. And I don't worry about market tanks, and I don't worry about the economy falling off a cliff, because if it does fall off a cliff, I'll just do exactly what I'm doing more aggressively because prices will be lower.
Yeah. I want to ask you a question as like to play kind of devil's advocate. A lot of people kind of sit on the sidelines from an investing standpoint, and they're like, when I make X, I'll have enough to start investing.
Yeah.
Right? So talk a little bit about that. Like, when did you start investing? What's the amount, like stuff like that people are always...
I bought into that lie for a long time, and I lost a lot of money as a result of doing that.
Meaning? What do you mean by lost a lot of money?
Back in 2008, everybody knew that it was the best time in the world to start investing for the long term. Everyone knew that. When the market goes from 13,000 to 6,000 and real estate prices go from a $200,000 house is now worth $80,000 a house, people know that's the best time to get into investing for long term. But now they're afraid because recent history, their short-term recent history has said that it's a bad time.
Yeah.
You're going to lose more. Well, even if you had bought halfway down the correction today, you'd be swimming in money. So I lost a lot of money by sitting on the sidelines in fear. I started investing about 2 years ago. I bought my first real estate investment property. I started investing regularly into the stock market. I believed that if I just went and made $1 million in business, that I could go take that and put it into some investments, and then I'd be set, right? Then I'd be safe. I'd never have to think about anything ever again, which we know is just this elusive area in our brain that doesn't even exist. But I believed that if I just had $1 million, I'd invest that. And even when my businesses started to get really profitable and I did well, I just could not pull the trigger on putting $100,000 from the bank, which is like safe and knowable and secure, and putting it into something that is not knowable anyway. You could call it safe and secure, but you don't know for sure. So here's what I did in order to satisfy my need for security and balance that with my desire to invest. I created an emergency fund that I felt was capable of me getting back on my feet if there was a zombie apocalypse.
Which is coming, by the way, I heard.
What's that?
Which is coming, by the way.
It's coming any minute now. I put in 6 months expenses into a bank account. That is my money that I never touch. The rest of my money I invest after my monthly expenses. So the way that instead of taking $100,000 or whatever money you have and just plopping it into something you don't know. What I started doing was I just started doing monthly contributions.
Okay.
So, there's this part of our brain, I'm sure you know this, when you've got $100,000 in the bank, you're like, I feel safe. And then you're like, well, I don't feel that safe. So I'll feel safe when there's $250,000 in the bank. Well, I don't feel that safe. And I realized that never goes away. So I started doing monthly contributions rather than taking all this money that I now felt unsafe taking out.
Interesting.
And putting into something. So it was like, okay, from now forward, I'm just going to regularly invest X amount of dollars into my strategy. And I might not get there as fast as if I had taken this whole plop. But to be honest with you, I don't feel safe taking this money out of the bank. So I'm just going to build every month. I'll buy a few houses a year. I'll buy, well, for me, it's a few $1,000s of stock every month until that builds into something very, very impressive just from making small little decisions every month.
Yeah, that was
That's
the
how
point.
I was able to do it. I don't know if everybody's wired that way, but that was how I satisfied that need for security while still pursuing investing. It was the only way that I could kind of hack my brain into.
Yeah. I think that's a really smart play, is do the monthly, like whatever the amount is, just carve that out, create that habit as you watch what you're doing. Because you got, like, when you first started, you were a newbie in investing.
Right.
You're now 2 years out, which is still considered a newbie, right? And how much more confident are you today in investing?
100%. I mean, completely different person.
Exactly.
Completely different person. Now I do blog posts on what dividend paying stock I see growing over the next 18 months.
Yeah. Which is insane. The guy's 26 years old and this, but I just wanted to drive home, like, you have to start somewhere because, and I love that you said if your conversation is when I have X, I will do Y, X is never going to come.
Right.
Because then it's X plus 10, X plus 50, X plus 100. It never ends because the way you are now is the money. One of our mentors says this: money will just accentuate what you already are.
It's an amplifier.
It's an amplifier. It doesn't.
It's like alcohol.
Exactly.
It just makes you more of who you are.
Exactly. Like, you're not going to be more generous when you have $1 million. You're going to be the same asshole. Like, if you're generous with 100. You'll be uber generous with $1 million. Yeah. Like, it doesn't play on each other. So I'm really glad you brought that up. Yeah. Now, aside from the fact, by the way, guys, you can head over to the blog is freedomfastlane.com, right?
Yep.
Okay. And on there, you actually share these tips openly, like dividends that you find, what you're investing in, et cetera. And one of the things that I noticed you just started doing is income reports.
Mm-hmm. Like 5 or 6 months in now. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did that come about?
I wanted to do something different that not a lot of people in the market were doing right now.
Yeah.
While I was on a journey towards something. So I started this when my business was like on the upswing. So I felt comfortable talking about it, but I knew that it was still growing and I wanted to document that process of, I thought it would be helpful for people to see what changes I made in my business that actually impacted revenue.
Interesting.
Not things that just looked cool or sounded good. What were the changes that actually increased revenue? And I don't have any products for sale anymore, so I don't care about holding any secrets back anymore. So I'm kind of an open book on that topic now. And I've always found that people benefit the most when they see something that they can follow along.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be able to say, I was doing this much a year ago. These are the steps that I took and now I'm here. And I wanted people able to see that. And I thought that was really something different that not a lot of people were doing in the marketplace.
Has it affected your business in any way? Like, did you notice that by you going out there and quote unquote being that transparent, that it's impacted your business?
It has definitely created a following of people who want to buy things from me that I don't have for sale. So maybe it'll impact my revenues someday if I ever have anything for sale. But the one thing that it's done is kind of motivated me in a way, because I don't want to look like a jerk who had a decrease in revenue from month. It's also forced me to admit some things I didn't want to admit. For example, in my men's health and fitness company, I had a retail buyer turn out to scam me out of more than $10,000. I was like, damn it, I have to say that the money I reported from last month was inaccurate because I got ripped off. I have to say it.
Wow.
It has forced me to make more strategic and calculated decisions in a way.
Huh.
Because things that impact revenue, I have to say, do I want to look like a jerk if this does? It made me do due diligence, if you will. Of course, I didn't learn that until after I got kicked in the face from it once or twice. But I can't say directly, but indirectly, it's affected my mindset, which is the biggest factor in the revenue that you have anyway.
There's something really interesting that you just did. Like when we coach people, one of the things I tell people, okay, so say you want to quit smoking or lose weight or whatever. As a human, you're just sleazy. You will let yourself off the hook super easy. You'll come up with some stupid excuse to justify it and, whatever. But we tell people, like, go share that goal with these people, like people that can actually hold you accountable. Yeah. What you've actually gone and done is you've shared that with the world, and now the whole world looks at you to hold you accountable.
Yes.
So now you got to perform. There's no like, I'm going to be lazy today, because you got to show up and perform. It's really
I've recommended that people write handwritten letters to people that inspire them and let them know what goal they've set as a result of meeting that person. And you get two things when you get the accountability, and one, you start to build up a network of people. I based that idea off of a friend of mine decided he wanted to go full-time on the internet. So he wrote a resignation letter 6 months in the future, put it in an envelope, and mailed it to a buddy of his and said, no matter what, no matter how much I beg you, please give this to my boss on this date.
Wow.
And he had to do it. He basically quit at that point. Yeah.
That is brilliant. So good.
Scary.
So good. But look, that's going to make you, that's what I call scorched earth. It's like, there's no going back, You just got to move forward.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to ask you, because you just said, like, because of that, you're now kind of like, should I do this? Should I not do this? Do you, it sounded to me like you're almost putting limits on where you would maybe take like a bigger risk because afraid of looking bad when you have to put up the annual, like the monthly report?
Not necessarily a bigger risk, just a stupid risk. We did not do our due diligence on that retail purchaser who ripped us off. Had I done our due diligence, probably wouldn't have had to make that mistake.
Got it.
So it's something that I have to be more calculated about. It forced me to be smarter about the decisions that I made, not risk averse.
Got it. Okay, cool. So in your current business, with what you're doing right now, you've obviously been growing month over month. What has been the biggest challenge that you've faced, say, in the last 3 months in blowing up your business?
The biggest challenge. I think the biggest challenge has been continually stretching myself to the next level and the next risk tolerance.
Brilliant.
The idea of withstanding something without results, that gets longer and harder the higher level you play at.
Yeah.
And I'm at a level now where we need to do that in our business. And it's tough. Like, if we want to build a new channel, which is what we're doing right now, off of Amazon, that we're not completely dependent on Amazon, we have to weather a storm all over again.
Yeah.
It's hard to do
when
it stretches your existing limits. So I think the biggest challenge, just like everything else, hasn't been something business related. It's been in my brain.
Yeah, it always is.
There's one exception. There is one situation that is outside my control, and that's cheating competitors. Competitors who create a bunch of fake accounts and write negative reviews on your listing that aren't real.
That's so...
Them rank higher. Now, I bring this up because we made the decision very early that if we were going to apply this long-term thinking to our business, that it would be a deviation from that if we were to play that game back, which is the temptation. The temptation is everybody's cheating. Let's cheat too. That's the temptation. But we decided early on that we were going to think long-term. So the way that we get out of that instead is, okay, I guess we need to systemize our reviews better. We need to make better connections at Amazon to let them know what's going on. We need to have even better customer service so that we get enough reviews to bury this. We contact our competitors and say, let's band together and find out who's doing this. That's long-term thinking, which has served us greatly. Whereas the immediate response is we want to play this game back and create fake accounts and leave negative reviews and inflate our own reviews. We decided not to do that, which has actually made us a better and more sustainable company because we had to develop better systems and better long-term thinking.
Brilliant. It's interesting, like the knee-jerk reaction, I just want to drive this point home, like knee-jerk reaction for people in their lives, and guys, like listen and look in your own lives, is to do what Ryan just said. Like you want to just respond back.
Yeah.
And like he just mentioned, in the stepping back and thinking, okay, well, look, what's our mission? What's our end goal here long term? From there, what strategies, what tools, what can we bring to this that's not just like ego, I'm going to punch you back in the face, because you know where that's going to lead. And take a look in your life. Like, what are the things that you're knee-jerk reacting to that you could step back and do that with? Because like you said, it provided you probably crazy other insights and connections and whatever that you never even would have thought of, right?
Yeah. And that's the case with any business.
Exactly.
I mean, you teach people Facebook marketing, and the people who say, I got to make this back now, rather than what do I need to change about my philosophy or my marketing in order to be profitable 6 months from now, completely different set of answers that you get.
Yeah. I want to just point to something. You said a line, you said the biggest challenge is, the mindset and then stretching ourselves and getting back into that world of, uncertainty and all that stuff. Right. I just want to let you know, like, you've done this before and you've succeeded every single time. Right. Look at your life, and the results will prove to you that every time you've jumped like that, you've succeeded immensely.
Well, I have a very wise friend who told me once that to let fear be my guide. And he told me that every time that you've done something you were afraid of it, how did you feel? And I was like, empowered, like a better person. And he was like, then let fear be your guide to that feeling. I don't remember who that was.
I don't remember either.
It was good advice, though. He was either a wise man or a fool. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, only time will tell, right? Time is the ultimate decider. Yeah. But it's so easy, I think, to see from the outside, because on the inside, there's a lot of emotion and all that stuff tied in. So it's very difficult, which is why I think, you and I are big believers in mentors and coaches, and always having people from the outside let us know when we kind of put it on the table. But I'm telling you, from the outside looking in, like, I know that every time you stretch yourself like that, it just automatically takes you to the next level. Yeah. So good for you, my man. Very, very proud of you. 26 years old, guys. 26 years old. Absolutely mind-blowing. Amazing.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's just every time I talk to you, I'm like, my God, you really are like a 60-year-old brain and a 26-year-old body. So much wisdom.
I'm going to go eat some prunes now.
Yeah, so much wisdom. Okay, so amazing podcast that you run, Freedom Fast Lane. I think what I've noticed is you've started to have more fun with it.
Good.
Maybe from like the fact that you're not selling anything and it's just really like education and information and stuff like that, which I think alters people's mindset. But you've gotten to interview some pretty amazing people and had some pretty amazing conversations. Through the time, is there like one or two things that really stood out to you, whether the person or a lesson or something that you want to share with people?
Yeah, I think that there's been a common thread among successful people where we all tend to think in a similar way, even if we put our languaging a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of people on, Guy Finley, Jesse Elder, Satori Prime, have all had this thread of success comes as a result of what's between your ears, not necessarily the systems or the process or the strategy or the book or whatever it is that makes you successful. That success actually comes as a result of what is internal to you. And it's funny, it's fresh in my mind because we talked about it, but there has definitely been a thread of authenticity being a precursor to success. Because we all know people who are successful monetarily, but are not successful in the happiness bank.
Yeah.
And I have found a thread among a lot of the successful people that I've interviewed that once they got that right, that the rest of the process was really, really easy, that success just naturally followed. I did a podcast.
Just to clarify, what did they get right?
Once they got their internal work in place, once they got their happiness and their security and their sense of self very clear, that success was just on the other side of that.
Yeah.
That it was all that junk covering it up that was also blocking them from success. Yeah. So we strip away that and success is like, oh, it's right here. There it is. It's been in front of me the whole time, but I couldn't see it because I had all this junk on. I had a podcast with my mentor, Travis Sago, who said exactly this. You work on happiness first. You work on a sense of self first, and success is just right there. It's just staring you in the face. And one of the myths that we believe is that success and happiness come somewhere outside of ourselves when really it's an internal process.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
I know that that's not popular to say on like a business podcast, but the truth is, in the thread that I've found among the successful people that I've interviewed, that has been the conclusion that I've had.
Yeah, and I told you right before we got on, I said what's been amazing to me is that no matter what thing people have chosen to master, no matter what field they've chosen to master, the process has always been the same. You just said it a little bit, right? Like we all say things a little bit differently.
Yeah.
It's just that you have to get out of your own way to reach success. And those that choose some path of mastery inevitably have to go through a process that forces them. They basically put themselves into a context that forces them to eliminate this layer and that layer and get rid of that and that and that. Because when you're playing a game that big, you can't be the same person you were when you started playing the game.
Right.
You know, lessons become way more expensive, way more painful. And if you're going to be a baby about them, like you were when you lost the first $100 and then you lose your first 10,000, like you're just going to melt. Like you're not going to be able to survive. So I always tell people, like, everything that happens is a lesson learned, and learning it now is going to be cheaper than you learning it 10 years from now.
100. That is.
So your $10,000 is a gift from God, because that probably would have been $1 million 10 years from now.
That I hate that you're right, but you are indeed right.
I hate it when I'm right. All right, let's end it with this. By the way, this has been absolutely fun. I seriously love talking to you. Get my brain going.
You're my best friend too.
Do you like guacamole?
Yes.
Did we just become best friends? And we digress. Okay, question I end all my podcasts with, and you kind of said a few things, so I'm curious what you would say to this. That beautiful cliche of, if I only knew then what I know now. Now, granted, Ryan's only 26, so this is, but in that same vein, you've had a tremendous amount of experience. So what's something you wish you would have known, like, 5, 8, 10 years ago? I'm
going to alter the question because I knew it, but I didn't get it.
Say it again.
I knew it, but I didn't get it.
Okay, good.
It's something that I wish I had really gotten a long time ago, and it was some advice from an old girlfriend's grandfather. And I told him, we called him Pop. And I said, Pop, what's the secret to life?
Wow. How old were you?
I was 21 or 22.
Okay.
And he said, work hard and don't worry about the other guy, because that's his experience. You have your own experience by working hard. Now, I heard it, but I didn't get it until I realized that I had been completely operating my life by comparing myself to other people.
Yeah.
I evaluated my own success by what I saw in other people. I saw my own handsomeness by comparing myself to other people. Luckily, I always won that game. Definitely I'm on the performance enhancing podcast.
But for those that aren't watching this on video, he like totally leaned in and just did like a whole actor face. That was great.
Well, I didn't get that I was operating in this place of we're always making this comparison of what other people do, of what other people think is best, of what other people think is success, of what other people think is happiness. And that is all playing someone else's game. But guess what? They're playing the same game.
Exactly.
So the only game that's actually real is what's true to ourselves.
Yeah.
Because if we're playing this comparison game, then we're playing a game that doesn't exist.
Exactly.
It's this game that we're all playing in each other's minds. We don't influence anybody else by doing that. So I wish I had gotten earlier. I get it now, but I wish I had gotten earlier that the secret to life is to work hard and to not worry about the other guy. That's their experience.
Brilliant. Do you think that lesson, because that kind of ties into what happened in the story you shared earlier when you decided to leave the info marketing space, was that kind of like the moment where you're like, fuck, they're all worried about them?
Yeah, that was definitely a light bulb moment where I realized that was the case. Because all these people that I thought were so successful were like, how'd you do that? It's like, I just stopped. That's what I did. I don't get how you do that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to explain it. But yeah, they all envy that now and wish that they could do it. And I realized that they were just following a herd mentality. Everybody was following everybody else.
Yeah. It's such I feel like that's the world's biggest lie. Somehow in the brain, it's just programmed in that we look to everyone else to tell us how to live and what to do and blah, blah, blah. But it kind of puts a real nice bow on this because, right, you said every master you speak to and all that stuff, they all go like this. They all go inside.
Yeah.
And then from the inside, you figure all this stuff. Well, not figure it out, but I feel like we always knew it, kind of like you said, like you always know it, but you don't quite get it.
Right.
You just get it at different times.
You heard the words, but they're not true.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes we're just being reminded of things that we innately knew.
Funny how that works.
Yeah, it's funny. The whole life is funny. Ryan, again, absolute pleasure. Super, super fun hanging out with you. Where can people find you? Where can people follow you?
My blog is freedomfastlane.com. That's where the income reports are. That's where my blog posts are. That's where my musings about life are. That's where my newsletter is. And then the podcast is on iTunes. It's called Freedom Fastlane. And as of last week, we were top 10 in marketing. So it's scorching up the charts. You can find us on iTunes, Freedom Fastlane.
Awesome. And by the way, we mentioned a few books and a few other resources. I will put everything on satoriprime.com/podcasts. So you don't have to write this down if you're driving in your car. Please stay on the road safely. Just check the website and look for Ryan Moran's podcast, and we will share that all with you. Till then, everyone have an amazing, amazing day. Again, Ryan, thank you so much, buddy.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us on this week's Performance Enhancing Podcast. We've taken this pep talk and created a custom action guide so you know exactly what action steps to take now to grow your business. Just head over to satoriprime.com/podcast and download it for free. Also, please leave a comment and rate this podcast on iTunes. It'll help us get the word out. Thanks for listening. Now, go and implement. We'll see you next time.